We look forward to the new year. We leave behind yet another year of unforgettable headlines, from the presidential election, of course, to the Summer Olympic Games in London, to the tragedies that stunned the nation. Shepard Smith now taking a look back at the biggest stories of 2012.
Politics played a major role this year, obviously, as the U.S. counted down to the presidential election. But mass shootings, a historic Supreme Court ruling, and Washington scandals also dominated the headlines. 2012 opened with the first in the nation Iowa caucuses. Initial reports put former Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney out in front. But the certified results showed former Senator Rick Santorum actually won by a handful of votes. Racial tension spiked when George Zimmerman shot and killed the Florida teenager Trayvon Martin. The self-proclaimed neighborhood watchman says he shot the 17-year-old in self-defense. Fighting in Syria intensified. But a defiant President Bashar al-Assad refused to step down. Activists estimate at least 40,000 people have died since the violence began last year. Trouble in Colombia for the U.S. Secret Service when agents allegedly brought prostitutes back to their hotel. President Obama arrived in the country just a few days later. After a bitter primary season, the GOP race for the White House took shape. Mitt Romney, the party's presidential nominee. Change in Egypt. Mohamed Morsi of the Muslim Brotherhood won the country's first free presidential election, but later sparked enormous protests when he gave himself broad powers. As the summer heated up, so did the Supreme Court. The justices ruled on the Affordable Care Act. The 5-4 opinion was a big win for the president's health care insurance plan. The court decided the individual mandate, which requires nearly every American to have health insurance or pay a penalty, falls under the government's taxation powers. Massacre at the movies. Investigators say James Holmes opened fire at a midnight screening of the Batman film, The Dark Knight Rises. 12 people killed and 58 others hurt. Athletes from all around the globe gathered for the 2012 Summer Olympic Games in London. In August, a somber milestone for our armed forces as the number of U.S. military deaths in Afghanistan reached 2,000. Violence in a place of worship. A gunman opened fire in a Wisconsin Sikh temple, killing 6 people and wounding 4 others before he killed himself. Mitt Romney completed the Republican ticket by selecting the Wisconsin Congressman Paul Ryan as his running mate. Hurricane Isaac canceled the first day of the Republican National Convention in Tampa, where Governor Romney and Congressman Ryan officially accepted the Republican Party nominations.
I will work with all my energy and soul to restore that America, to lift our eyes to a better future.
A week later, Democrats hosted their convention in Charlotte, North Carolina. And President Obama and Vice President Biden accepted their nominations for re-election. On September the 11th, gunmen killed the U.S. ambassador to Libya, Chris Stevens, and 3 other Americans at the American consulate in Benghazi.
They had a mission, and they believed in it. They knew the danger, and they accepted it.
U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Susan Rice, used intelligence agencies' talking points to tie the violence to worldwide protests over an American-made anti-Islam film. The attack later linked to terrorism, and some on Capitol Hill accused the administration of covering up the truth, though there's no evidence of that. In the midst of that controversy, President Obama and Governor Mitt Romney squared off in 3 debates, while both Joe Biden and Paul Ryan came out swinging at their one and only vice presidential debate. Israeli President Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the United Nations to renew his calls for drawing a red line on Iran's nuclear program. The White House said all options are on the table, but stopped short of issuing an ultimatum. The U.S. Anti-Doping Agency released a report accusing cyclist Lance Armstrong of using performance-enhancing drugs. He never admitted doping, but Armstrong's fall from grace cost him his 7 Tour de France titles. A jury convicted the former Penn State assistant football coach Jerry Sandusky on 45 counts of child sex abuse. And a judge sentenced him to at least 30 years in prison. Devastation in the Northeast as Superstorm Sandy slammed into the coast. The storm caused the heaviest damage in parts of New York and New Jersey. It knocked out power to millions and caused a gas shortage that led to long lines and rationing. President Obama won a second term in office.
We remain more than a collection of red states and blue states. We are and forever will be the United States of America.
While Republicans retained control of the House and Democrats kept their majority in the Senate. And just days after the election, a scandal hit Washington. The CIA director, the retired General David Petraeus, resigned after admitting he'd had an affair with his biographer. A man murdered 20 children and 6 adults at an elementary school in Newtown, Connecticut. Investigators say Adam Lanza killed his own mother before that shooting spree and later killed himself at the school.
That you're not alone in your grief. That our world, too, has been torn apart.
Now we're looking ahead to next year, waiting to see what President Obama can accomplish in his final term and whether lawmakers in Congress can find a way to work together for the good of us all. We're also keeping a close eye on the economy and the situations in Syria and Egypt. A lot of uncertainties ahead, and we'll be here covering all the news as it happens. In New York, I'm Shepard Smith, Fox News.